Disney's Frozen has been a phenomenal hit with kids and grown-ups alike throughout the world.
Hi, I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs.
With its cast of lovable characters and its catchy songs, Disney fans are not ready to let it go. With Frozen 2 having been recently released, the hype is only growing stronger. And where there's hype, there's discussion.
That's normal.
We wanted to know how the cast of the Frozen movies stack up on the morality spectrum. I'm Teresa with WickedBinge, and this is Good to Evil Frozen.
Let's go bring back summer!
First up on our list is Olaf. Despite initially seeming like an easy fan favorite, Olaf has gained many an enemy over the years as Frozen's initial hype never quite faded, cementing it as a classic go-to for an entire generation of children.
Hey, we were just talking about you.
As many parents will tell you, if you've seen Frozen as many times as the average child wants to see it, the snowman's antics will start to grate on your nerves. However, despite the fact that he might be irritating, I still firmly believe that Olaf is the truest good the franchise has to offer.
I give you my legs! I give you my legs!
In the original movie, when Anna is dying from the ice blast she got to the heart, he sets her up by the fire to keep her warm, even when it causes him to melt.
Olaf, you're melting.
Some people are worth melting for.
The fact that the movie doesn't acknowledge this as the act of true love that Anna needs to be saved is probably the biggest plot pitfall Frozen has, in my opinion. In this scene, Olaf proves himself to be the most morally good character in the series, with one fell swoop, securing his place at the top of our list. Sven is the next on our list. One of the first characters introduced in the franchise, Sven is the lovable reindeer companion of Kristoff, though at times he's more dog-like than anything else. A loyal companion, it's hard to find any fault with Sven. After all, he's the one who convinces Kristoff that, although Anna might insist that Hans is her real true love, he should still go after her.
She's with her true love.
He's also the much-needed form of transport for many quick getaways and cross-forest journeys in the franchise. He's stuck with Kristoff through thick and thin since he was a child, and his love for his companion never wanes no matter the danger he's dragged into. He retains his lovable demeanor no matter the weather, which for Frozen is pretty important. In fact, the only reason he even ranks second is simply because nothing he could do could really outweigh Olaf's act of true compassion for Anna in the first film. That's no slight on poor Sven, though. It's hard for any reindeer to outdo that. Next up is Anna. Though Elsa is often taken to be the most important character in Frozen, seeing as she sets the events of the movie into motion and is the one with the magical powers, Anna is still the protagonist whose eyes we see the events take place through.
Maybe she has a thing about dirt.
When it comes to Disney princesses, she's one of the most relatable. Socially awkward, naive, and stubborn to a fault. She has the hallmark of a princess while retaining the hallmark of a normal girl too.
Not you're awkward, but just because I'm awkward. You're gorgeous.
In For the First Time in Forever, she manages to juxtapose singing about ballrooms and extravagant royal galas with the growing pains of an isolated young girl hoping for romance. However, as the protagonist of the series, she's also one of the most developed characters, which she couldn't be without some human flaws. One of those is being stubborn to a fault. Her initial argument with Elsa over her engagement boiled over into Elsa revealing her powers and running away from Arendelle. Her unwillingness to let anything go is an admirable trait, and ultimately is what leads her to save her sister in the end, but also has a habit of putting her and others in harm's way. Her impulse and overly trusting behavior also leads her to make the rash decision of putting Hans in charge of Arendelle in her absence, which also leads to a catastrophe.
I leave Prince Hans in charge.
However, these are human errors and flaws, with no malicious intent behind them. Without them, Anna wouldn't be such a well-loved character, and without overcoming them, she wouldn't have become the queen she is at the end of Frozen 2. Kristoff places next. As one of the first characters characters we are introduced to. He was always going to be an important part of the story, even if he never knew it. He's as hard-headed as Anna and provides an equal match for her in their conversations, providing much-needed tension relief in sticky times.
This is fresh lacquer. Seriously, were you raised in a barn?
Before the start of the first film, he's shown to have been a lone wolf of sorts, only really interacting with people to run his ice harvesting business, and otherwise being content with just him and his reindeer.
You want to talk about a supply and demand problem? I sell ice for a living.
He even insists that reindeer are better than people, and comes off as cold and aloof. Underneath his hard and sometimes dismissive exterior, though, he has a heart of gold, and the audience knows it from the start.
Whoa!
You okay?
Thank you.
We see it through his loving relationship with Sven and his found family with the trolls. Later on, we see it in his budding love for Anna as he takes risks for her time and time again. Kristoff is a much-loved fan favorite because he lived up to our expectations. We saw through his aloof exterior to the loving heart underneath.
Are you cold?
A little.
We could not say the same in reverse for someone else, but we'll come to him much later. Most likely, the most famous character in Frozen is Elsa, locked away in her bedroom for almost her entire childhood as she desperately tries and fails to control her powers. It's easier to understand why she comes off as cold and strict at the beginning. The opening scene has her accidentally injuring Anna as a child with her powers, and then being racked with so much guilt for her developing years that she couldn't even leave her room for her parents' funerals. It's a touching and heartbreaking story right from the get-go, full of dramatic irony as Anna struggles to see why her sister is rejecting her, and Elsa growing more terrified of her powers with each passing year.
Please, just stay away from me. Stay away!
Shaking off her shackles and realizing that she can be free with her powers outside of Arendelle is a pivotal moment in her life, and not one she takes lightly. Her transformation is almost a parody of a villainess. She declares she's no longer that perfect girl and that she's letting her powers wreak havoc. However, Elsa is not a villain by any stretch of the imagination. After all she does is build another tower to lock herself away in to hide away her powers. With the love of her family and community, her powers become manageable, and by Frozen 2, when she ventures out to find out who she really is, she already knows, and that person is still fundamentally good. Fans of the entire Frozen franchise will remember the short film Frozen Fever that came shortly after in 2015, where Elsa gets a cold. Her sneezing creates the Snowgies. These little creatures bounce into existence at a rapid rate, creating more than a little mayhem.
Little brothers!
Ultimately, though, it's not their fault that they exist in unabashedly large quantities, and they don't have much personality except for being cute little nuisances.
This way, sludge and slide and Ansel and Flake
And since they provide the short film with its much-needed cute factor, we can't fault them much. Though playing a relatively minor role, Oaken was a memorable character for many reasons.
Woohoo! Big summer blowout?
For starters, his eccentric mannerisms make him easily one of the funnier characters in the original film, and in his reprisal in Frozen 2. He's also argued to be the first gay character in a Disney film, with the other man and children in his sauna said to be his family.
Woohoo! Hi, family!
As interesting a tidbit as this is, not much else can be discerned about Oaken. He's a minor character who makes a couple of short cameos. However, the worst he does, arguably, is bar Kristoff from his shop, and even then he allows Anna to purchase his winter wear in his stead, so he won't freeze.
Just the outfit and the boots, yeah?
You'd be hard-pressed to find anything malevolent in him anyway. Next is Kristoff's loving and eccentric found family, the Trolls. A gaggle of quirky characters big and small. They accepted Kristoff into their family with open arms, despite him being an entirely different species.
Cuties. I'm gonna keep you.
They're clearly folk who value family, community, and empathy for others from the get-go.
Kristoff's home!
However, watching them accost Anna is like being an observer of a particularly tiresome family gathering with the in-laws. Despite her being clearly unwell and engaged to somebody else, they spend an entire song and dance number pointing out all of Kristoff's flaws and then trying to convince her to not only call off her engagement, but to immediately marry Kristoff in an impromptu ceremony they set up within 5 minutes of meeting her.
Her quote engagement is a flex arrangement.
That's pushy even for someone who wasn't on the verge of death from having her heart frozen in an accident. They might mean well, and Anna's engagement might be admittedly poorly thought out. But give them some space, guys. In the first film, Iduna, Elsa and Anna's mother, plays a relatively small part. However, in the second film, her role is much greater, and we get some semblance of a backstory for her. It turns out she was born in the Enchanted Forest and could talk to the spirit guardians there.
I need to tell you about my past and where I'm from.
When a battle broke out between her kingdom and Arendelle, she saved Prince Agnarr with the help of a wind spirit. They became fast friends and were later married, sparking the course of the narrative. We can infer that Iduna seems to be a caring and loving mother and a devoted wife, despite only having one spoken line.
She's ice cold.
However, the trouble starts much later when Elsa's powers prove to be a challenge. After Anna's accident, Pabby tells the family that Elsa's powers can be dangerous and need to be controlled, and therefore Iduna consents to her daughter's isolation until she can handle it. While she may have loved both her daughters and wanted what was best for them and the kingdom, in the long run, no one can argue that this was truly in Elsa's or Anna's best interests. Agnarr comes next on our list, if only because the decision to close the castle's gates and isolate his family. Despite being warned by Pabby that festering fear of Elsa's powers would make everything worse, isolating her causes her to treat herself like a pariah for her formative years. Instead of putting the focus on Elsa learning how to control using her powers, he only presents the option to suppress and conceal them entirely, causing Elsa to view them as a curse instead of a blessing.
Conceal it.
Don't feel it. Don't let it show.
This isolation drives a huge wedge between Elsa and Anna, with the elder being afraid to even interact with her younger sister for fear of hurting her. It later drives a wedge between Elsa and her parents, as she fears hurting them too, and has closed off her emotions towards them.
No, don't touch me.
Although Elsa's quest to find out who she is in the sequel leads her to reconcile many elements of her past, it's undeniable that Agnarr handled this extremely badly, in a way that negatively impacted his whole family.
We will limit her contact with people and keep her powers hidden.
While he did what he did for the perceived greater good, no good can be said to have come from it. Next up is Marshmallow, one of Elsa's ominous snowman warriors. He's created to ward Kristoff and Anna away when they come to find Elsa in her castle, and he's certainly a ferocious foe. However, it's hard to paint him as entirely evil, as he's only created with Elsa's objectives in mind, and those objectives are not inherently evil.
Go away.
His purpose isn't to cause Kristoff or Anna any grievous bodily harm, it's just to protect Elsa, and them from Elsa.
Don't come back!
He's even shown to have a softer side, as when he finds Elsa's crown and puts it on, he visibly brightens up. All in all, he's not all bad, but I still wouldn't like to meet him on a lonely street at night. Duke of Weselton is our penultimate entry, and it's not too difficult to see why.
The Duke of Weselton.
Weselton! Duke of Weselton.
Though he might not be our prime villain, he's one of the most unpleasant characters in the series. His sole reason for coming to Elsa's coronation is to exploit Arendelle's riches and to find out what secrets are hiding behind its closed gates.
Open those gates so I may unlock your secrets and exploit your riches.
He spends most of the opening part of the movie badgering people about what secrets they might be hiding, and definitely comes off as unlikable. When Elsa's powers are revealed, he's one of the first to show disgust towards her, proclaiming that she was a monster, a statement that causes her to run into the forest and isolate herself once again.
Monster! Monster!
He then tries to covertly have Elsa killed, sending 2 guards after her to capture her.
And should you encounter the Queen, you are to put an end to this winter.
Despite all of this, when Elsa learns to control her powers and summer is restored to the kingdom, he still tries to weasel his way into a trade deal with the Queen, a request that obviously goes unfulfilled.
My neck hurts! Is there a doctor that I could see?
It would be hard to beat the Duke for nastiest character of the franchise, but of course, someone narrowly does. That person, to no one's surprise, is Hans. Hans is probably a primary reason why an entire generation are going to grow up with serious trust issues. The entire first half of the narrative, there is no inclination that he is anything but Anna's hasty fiancé, utterly devoted and a little daft.
We would like
your blessing
of our marriage.
He declares his love for her, is trusted with the kingdom when she goes to find Elsa, and shows no signs of any malicious intent.
I need you here to take care of Arendelle.
on my honor.
That is until his pivotal moment, where his, "Oh, Anna, if only there were somebody who loved you" line shook audiences across the globe.
If only there was someone out there who loved you.
He chooses Anna's dying moments to reveal his true colors, testifying that it's all been a scheme to gain control over the kingdom.
You were so desperate for love, you were willing to marry me just like that.
If he got Elsa out of the way, then he could marry Anna, who would become queen until some unfortunate accident would undoubtedly befall her. The plot is ludicrously sinister, requiring not only a heavy level of planning, but also an absolutely twisted mind. It's hard to imagine a villain more cruel than Hans, as he stabs Anna in the back and then twists the knife by sentencing Elsa to death.
I charged Queen Elsa of Arendelle with treason.
It's what makes it all the more sweet when he gets his just desserts in the end.
The only frozen heart around here is yours.
But what do you think? Who's the most good character in Frozen? Do you agree Hans is the most evil? Don't forget to binge our full Good to Evil playlist, and most importantly, stay wicked.